Do you really want to plan with like your default velocity or whatever you're using for your planning environment? Don't do that. That's a ridiculous idea. No other industry takes on that kind of risk.
All right, you just finished sprint planning and you get into the work, and all of a sudden something changes. You've got some work you didn't think you were going to have to do, and now you have to do it. How does Scrum deal with this? How do you deal with it? I mean, is this just a normal thing that we would be okay with? What say you, Jason?
This question always makes me chuckle because I've worked with some people in the past who held to this belief that if you are changing the sprint backlog during the sprint, you are committing some sort of, scrum foul, minus 10 points, 10 scrum yards back, whatever you want to say. Like, this is not allowed. The whole point of a sprint backlog is to lock the scope of what we're doing for the duration of our sprint. And if we put 20 things on that sprint backlog at the end of sprint planning, come hell or high water, we're going to do those 20 things. And I get where that idea comes from. I really do. However, if we zoom out and we think of the whole reason we're using Scrum in the first place, it should be because we want to be adaptable, because we're doing complex work in which there are unknowns and there's unpredictability. And just like there's unknowns and unpredictability across a 1 or 2 or several year product development effort, there's going to be unpredictability in a 2 or 3 week sprint. And so the sprint backlog is not intended to be a little mini waterfall or a little mini, fixed scope. These are the things we're going to do no matter what. We have something that we want to hold to. It's the sprint goal. So we create a sprint goal at sprint planning, and we say we're going to do our darndest to meet this sprint goal. And then the rest of your sprint backlog, which is the list of items you're going to do, taken from the product backlog, put it into the sprint backlog, and a plan for achieving them, the technical details of, okay, how are we going to get these things done? How are we going to achieve our sprint goal? That's a forecast. It's our best guess, educated guess, but it's our best guess at sprint planning time of what it's going to take for us to achieve the sprint goal. And that can flex over the course of the sprint. So before getting into the nitty gritty of exactly how to deal with the unplanned work and kinds of unplanned work, I just want to level set, like, yes, you can do this. No, it's not a scrum foul. Hold to your sprint goal, which means you need a flexible sprint goal, and let the specific items on your sprint backlog flex as needed throughout the sprint.
Okay.
I'm going to say we could avoid a lot of the heartache of unplanned work if we do better planning, which sounds
sure.
kind of like well, how can you plan unplanned work? Does that even make sense? But I'd argue, yeah, it does. So I spent nearly 10 years in the construction industry and almost another 7 years in architecture supporting the construction industry. And there's one thing that would take a job and absolutely throw a wrinkle into your beautiful Gantt chart. You start digging for that foundation and you find out that you're on top of shale. That absolutely messed up everything. Messed up your timeline, messed up your foundation costs, messed up how they're going to dig this thing. So I could blindly just start planning the rest of the houses in that area and just say, you know what? It's going to go as it did last time. Let's go look at every other house. We've got 200 houses worth of data. And then the next 3 houses that you're going to build have a high probability of shale. Do you really want to plan with like your default velocity or whatever you're using for your planning environment? Don't do that. That's a ridiculous idea. No other industry takes on that kind of risk. But for whatever reason, I see in Scrum environments, people take this risk on constantly. They don't account for it in their budget. They don't account for it in their time. They don't account for it in their resources. And they end up getting into a sprint saying, my gosh, there's something I just learned that we're going to have to do. You're like, are you kidding me? What I would be interested to know is how many times do we encounter unplanned work during sprints? I mean, I'm not suggesting this is a brand new metric that we account for, but if we did a pre-mortem during sprint planning to account for what is the likelihood of unplanned work surfacing based on my gut feeling, based on Jason's finger in the air, I mean, like anything that we could do here to get a pulse, maybe you could take on less risk. So you've got a 2-week sprint. Congratulations. But it's not feeling good. Jason's got a spidey sense here, and his spidey sense has been rock solid. Maybe you should just plan something that takes up 1 week's worth of risk. And then when you encounter unplanned work, oh my gosh, it doesn't derail everything. It just gives you the capacity to be able to take on that unplanned work. And then, you know what? I hear this all the time, but what about that extra week? We have nothing else to do. What am I supposed to do then? It's like, are you kidding me? You do have a product backlog, right? You've been refining it, right? And cue up the meme where you've got Anakin and you're just like, yeah, I don't all over
Right.
LinkedIn. I see this like, right?
Yeah.
You did do that anyway.
You did refine the backlog, right?
Right. You did refine it, right? If you have work that's ready, unplanned work, that pre-mortem, that opportunity to look and kind of forecast not just the work that you think you can do, but forecast the potential for interruptions or change. Why don't we do that? I feel like every other industry does that rigorously. They have no choice. They have a tremendous amount at stake. The very least we could do is do that with Scrum.
Well, I'm going to take this another direction because there are times when it makes sense to just stop what you're doing and deal with this unplanned work. Give you a great example. What if there's an emergency? Pick on web development. You're building some beautiful website, and it turns out your production server just went down. Are you going to put that in your sprint backlog? Are you going to put, your product backlog and get to it in 3 sprints? Because we didn't plan for that. No, you're probably going to just stop and go fix it. But when something like that does happen, remember about that in the sprint retrospective, because you're going to want to figure out why you keep having production issues that are disrupting your sprint. In other situations, maybe a team member on your team just, I don't know, fell down the stairs and got a bump on their head, and now they're going to be in the emergency room for a couple weeks. Hopefully it's more than just a bump in the head if they're out for a few weeks, but yeah, heck of a bump. And I didn't want to get terribly graphic in a Scrum video. But the point I'm trying to make is, oh, wow, we're down a person. We better adapt really quickly. We no longer have the capacity to do the stuff that we had planned to do. So there's any number of emergencies that can come up, and a good Scrum team is going to adapt very quickly to whatever their changing circumstances are, doing their best to stay true to their sprint goals. But, in the case of that, the server blew up and took out our entire production environment. Honestly, if it takes your entire sprint to fix that, but you get it stood up again and you have to go to a sprint review saying, sorry, guys, we didn't accomplish our sprint goal, but a production server went down, we were able to recover, it's up and running again, and we're already doing root cause analysis, I think they're going to give you a pass on not producing a new increment of value, as long as it's not every week that this is happening. So don't be afraid of emergencies. Don't be afraid of change that you didn't expect. It's going to happen when you least expect it. But a good Scrum team is adaptable and it can very quickly pivot, which means you're going to have good communication. If something goes down, we all want to know about it so we can get on it as soon as we can. Yeah, emergencies, they happen.
Yep. Can I give one bonus tip? I had a
that?
client once that was 80% of their sprint was unplanned work. It was a mess. And they were doing 1-week sprints. It was just crazy. And the biggest thing that made a difference, they made the unplanned work very, very transparent sprint review. So every sprint review, here's what we planned. Here are the unplanned emergencies that came up. Some of them were true emergencies, like you said, Rob. Some of them were emergencies that really could have waited a couple days. And then, so here's what we planned. Here are the unplanned work that came up. Therefore, here's what we didn't get to. And as that was transparent, every sprint review, we started asking questions like, wait, that was really emergency? That couldn't have waited 2 days to the next sprint? Over time, 6-ish months later, that percentage flipped. 20% unplanned work, 80% planned work.
Wow.
When in doubt, make it transparent.